of their paychecks in their own pockets. My family works very hard. I know many other families work very hard. So let's allow them to make the decisions on how they're spending their hard-earned paycheck. I do believe that we need to lower taxes immediately on our hardworking families. And whether that's fairer, flatter, or simpler, I am very willing to have that discussion. And again, it does need to be done in a bipartisan manner. This is where you will see a very clear contrast between the congressman and myself. I have voted for one of the largest, and actually it was the largest tax decrease in Iowa history. As I stated before, we're saving Iowa taxpayers $4.4 billion over the next 10 years. The congressman has voted for one of the largest tax increases in United States history, and that hurts all of us. So we need to lower taxes immediately, but work in the long term to scrap the existing tax code, making it fairer, flatter, and simpler.
Follow-up for both of you. What should be done, Mr. Braley? You talked about getting together and having a meeting, so to speak, but specifically I was asking about what deductions should be eliminated, what should be changed. Can you tell me some specifics?
Well, part of the challenge, Kevin, is when you get people in a room and start saying, well, let's eliminate this, you have to look at how much revenue that's going to eliminate and what you're going to do to replace it with. And
but what do you feel? What are some of your feelings about this? Not what other people feel. People want to know what you think.
Well, what I think is we need to start by eliminating corporate tax loopholes that reward companies for shipping jobs overseas. That's something that should have been done a long time ago. We need to do it now. One of the other things we should have done is we should have given the government the ability to negotiate lower drug, but billions of dollars of revenue into the Treasury, and then we could start eliminating some of these other things that you're talking about.
Good enough, Mr. Braley. Ms. Ernst, you talk about lowering taxes, and I just want to follow up on that and have you get specific. How do you lower taxes? How are we going to lower taxes and still pay for the things that need to be paid for?
Well, you start by working in a bipartisan manner. I think both of us have agreed on that we do need to sit down and talk about these issues. And I'm a member of the minority party in the state Senate, and yet we were able to sit down, work through this, and lower taxes on hardworking Iowans. So, yes, we need to close loopholes. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. Flatter, fairer, and simpler. And the way we pay for things, first, we need to cut spending in the federal government. But with the economy growing, then our tax problem would be fixed.
Thank you. We've talked about the difficulty in coming together on taxes. Another difficult issue facing all of America is immigration. Do you believe, Ms. Ernst, that undocumented immigrants are primarily a drain on law enforcement and social services, or are they a source primarily of needed labor and entrepreneurship that helps the economy? And regardless of what you believe, how will you act on that?
Well, America, thank you, Kathy. America is the greatest nation in the world, which is why so many families want to come to America and do better for their own families. When I was a young woman, I participated in an agricultural exchange to the Soviet Union, and the family that I stayed with didn't talk to me about ag practices. What they did talk about was it like to be an American. They so badly wanted our freedoms. So I do understand why people want to immigrate to the United States. But you know, we are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. And I believe we need to enforce those laws. And first, we need to secure the border. Second is we need to enforce the laws that are on the books. And then over the long term, we really do need to modernize our legal immigration system because we do have a need for workers here in the United States. I disagree with Congressman Braley, though, when it comes to issues of immigration. I don't support amnesty, and I certainly don't support executive action to grant amnesty.
And Mr. Braley, Are undocumented immigrants mostly a law enforcement problem, or are they mostly an opportunity for the economy? How do you deal with those things?
Kathy, this is another great example where Tea Party obstructionism is keeping us from getting this problem solved. The Senate passed an overwhelming bipartisan immigration reform. 14 Republican senators voted for it to address the long-standing problems. It increased border security, and it increased the ability for people who are living here to find a pathway to citizenship, not through amnesty, but by admitting they broke the law, paying a steep fine, going to the back of the line, and letting us solve this problem. I talked to dairy farmers in Iowa who depend on immigrant labor when they used to have a hired man who grew up in this state. I talked to seed corn companies. I think Senator Ernst and I both detasseled corn when we were younger. Now 30 to 40% of the detasselers in Iowa are immigrant labor. High-tech companies are in desperate need of PhDs and engineers that we educate at our great research facilities, and they get sent back home. So, Senator, will you join John McCain and Marco Rubio and call on Speaker Boehner to bring this immigration bill to the floor of the House so we can pass it?
Ms. Ernst, you may respond.
Again, well, we are a nation of laws, and we have wonderful immigrants here in the United States that have come here legally. So I don't support amnesty. I do support bringing a lot of these illegal immigrants. There's 11.5 million of them. I believe in bringing them forward, but not granting them amnesty. We have 5 million people waiting in line right now to receive United States citizenship, and we need to honor that commitment to those 5 million people.
May I respond? Senator Rubio and Senator McCain did not vote for amnesty. Amnesty is when you break the law and there are no consequences. That's why they voted for this bill. It has real, serious, tough consequences, including an admission that you broke the law.
All right. Candidates, one more question here before we move on to the next segment. What, if any, legislation would you pursue, support, or sponsor at the federal level that deals with abortion, abortion funding, or drugs connected to abortion or contraception? Mr. Braley.
Well, what I won't do is support the type of legislation that Senator Ernst introduced in Iowa that would have banned all forms of abortion, that would have prevented certain forms of contraception from being available to Iowa women, that would have prevented in vitro fertilization, and would have prosecuted doctors for performing what are now legal procedures. I don't think it's the role of government to get in between women and their physicians in making decisions related to their health care, and that's what I won't support.
Very good. Ms. Ernst?
I support life. I believe in life. And that's a discussion that we need to have civilly. The amendment that is being referenced by the congressman would not do any of the things that you stated it would do. That amendment is simply a statement that I support life. And my faith has shaped me on this very issue, and it is a very, very personal issue. So I think that it is something that we will continue to disagree on. I will support life. The congressman believes in partial birth abortion. And these are things that we'll just continue to disagree on, but we can disagree on them civilly.
Well, and Senator Ernst, I respect your faith. I have my own faith that is very deep and personal to me. But let's be clear. The Cedar Rapids Gazette did a fact check on the amendment that you introduced and said that it would do all the things that I said it would. That it would ban forms of contraception, it would prevent people from getting in vitro fertilization, and you personally said that doctors who perform those procedures under your bill should be prosecuted. That's the reality, and that's what the Cedar Rapids Gazette said.
Mr. Braley, thank you. Final comment?
And that is only if legislation would be passed. This amendment, again, was a statement of life. Again, my faith has shaped me on that. When it does come to a woman's access to contraception, I will always stand with our women on affordable access to contraception. Again, that's something that Congressman Braley has been trying to mislead our women voters on. I do believe in a women's right to contraception.
All right, we'll leave it there for this segment, and we want to thank you for those answers. We are going to begin the next part of our debate with questions from viewers and readers, plus questions from Twitter that are submitted to us live during this broadcast. Again, if you would like to submit any of those questions, use the hashtag #IADebate. But first, we want to begin this part of the debate with a question for each of you from a student here at Simpson College. Ms. Ernst, you get the first question from Jake. He joins us from the studio audience. You have 45 seconds to respond.
My name is Jacob McLean, and I'm a junior majoring in religion here at Simpson College. My question is for you, State Senator Ernst. Ms. Ernst, you've said that you'd like to eliminate the Department of Education. What implications does this have for students who receive Pell Grants and federal student loans?
Thank you, Jake. That's a great question. And it doesn't do anything to those that receive Pell Grants and student loans. Those are programs that are very necessary for our college students, but they can easily be housed in the Department of Treasury. Now, when it comes to the Department of Education, 94% of those that are employed at the Department of Education at the federal level were deemed by the department as non-essential employees. So I would rather see the dollars that go to those non-essential employees being directed back at the state so they can be utilized by our teachers, by our administrators, and making sure that our Iowa students are receiving a great education.
Jake, thanks for that question. Mr. Braley, your question comes from another Simpson College student. JC, your question?
My name is JC Gomez, and I'm also a junior here at Simpson College with majors in both religion and Spanish, and my question is for you, Congressman Braley. In light of new terror threats in the Middle East, what specific advice would you give President Obama?
The most important advice is to make sure you do everything you can to engage our partners in the Middle East and our allies around the world in dealing with this global terrorist threat. I thought it was very encouraging that last week an Arab Muslim fighter pilot who is a woman was flying in the sorties with U.S. fighters. We need to engage so that we are doing this not as the world's police force, but as a community of nations bringing to bear the full weight of world opinion on these horrific acts that we keep seeing. And that's one of the most important things that the president can do, in addition to keeping Congress engaged, because only Congress can declare war.
All right. Thanks for those answers, candidates, and thanks to Jake and JC in the studio audience here at Simpson College for their questions. We move on now to some other questions from viewers and readers that have been submitted leading up to tonight's debate. KCCI and the Register, it's safe to say, received dozens and dozens and dozens of questions from viewers and readers. Candidates will get 45 seconds to answer these questions as well, and a chance for rebuttal if needed. Kathy, the first question goes to Mr. Braley.
Yes, Mr. Braley, a reader from Des Moines would like to know, why are you opposed to tort reform, such as limiting jury awards for people suing for damages in medical malpractice cases?
Well, Kathy, I just happen to think that we need to be doing more to protect Iowa consumers and families and not taking away their rights under the Constitution. And one of the things that we need to be talking about is when people are making radical proposals to take away your rights, you need to be thinking about what's that going to mean when something happens to me. And I think that that's something that is important to Iowans. I think Iowans have always known that they need to hold people accountable for what they do when it's harmful and wrong, and that's why I don't support those proposals.
All right.
Let me just ask you really quick as a follow-up. Do you not believe that defensive medicine is a significant part of why health care is so high?
Kathy, there are a host of different factors that contribute to the cost of medicine. And one of the things we've seen, and in fact you referenced this, I think, Kevin, in your opening, is for the first time in years we're seeing the significant growth in medical costs actually start to level off and not be as high as it had been previously. That's in part due to some of the measures we put in place with the Affordable Care Act to cut wasteful spending. And we know that there's certain parts of the country where there's a lot of spending that Iowans end up paying for.
Thank you, Mr. Braley. Ms. Ernst, we've received a number of emails about climate change for you, and viewers and readers want to know, what do you believe about climate change, and what, if anything, will you do about it?
Well, I grew up drinking well water on a southwest Iowa farm, and my dad is a wonderful conservationist. Most Iowa farmers are phenomenal conservationists. So I do believe in protecting our environment for not only our generation, but for our children and future generations. I drive a hybrid car, and my family recycles everything. So I don't know the science behind climate change.